Good morning, everyone. Today, I'm going to give some advice on how to not end up in jail, which is a good practice. My talk is about Bitcoin governance, and I'm going to give the different strategy on how to implement Bitcoin governance. Very briefly about me, so I'm Charles Guillemet. I'm a CTO at Ledger. My background is cryptography and security. And I joined Ledger in 2017. I discovered Bitcoin in 2011. At this time, a friend of mine was talking about Bitcoin like every day. So at some point, I decided to have a look at it. I studied the cryptography. I studied the technology, the double spending problem, the decentralized consensus, all of this. And I came back to my friend and I told him, like, your Bitcoin thing is very interesting, but what's the use case? I don't get it. So when I told him that I was joining Ledger in 2017, he made fun of me and asking me if I finally got it. And I think I did. I think the big revolution that Bitcoin brings is permissionless money. And permissionless money is achieved with two properties. The first one is the decentralized consensus. Like you have miners with a set of incentives that are completely decentralized, and this allows censorship resistance. When you want to make a transaction, no one can prevent you to do this transaction. And the second property is self-custody. With self-custody, you really own your value, and no one can prevent you to own your value. Bitcoin works with what we call EOA, for externally owned account. That means you simply have to generate a pair of keys, a public key and a private key. Your public key is essentially your address, and your private key will allow you to prove ownership over your assets. If you lose your private key, you lose your assets. If an attacker gets an access to your private key, he will make a transaction, and there is nothing you can do to revert this transaction. And this is why at Ledger we built our Nano devices, our hardware wallet devices, with security in mind, because security is paramount. Our design is quite simple. We are using secure element. The secrets are generated within this enclave, and the cryptography is implemented within the enclave so that the secrets don't have to leave it. Also, you have a trusted display directly on the device, allowing you to verify the transaction you are about to consent. All of this is quite simple, but it really works for retail, for individual. But what does it mean to do self-custody when you are a group of people, an organization, a financial institution? When you are an exchange, you probably don't want to store your assets on a Nano. Nano devices are perfectly secure. You could store billions on them, but you don't want to have this operational risk. You don't want to have someone in your organization with a full access of all the funds of the customers. I hope this is not the case. So let's have a look at what kind of governance we can use over Bitcoin. So the first one is the MultiSig on Bitcoin. This is the historical version. It used to be PSBT for partially signed Bitcoin transaction. It's not very well known, but on Bitcoin you have a scripting language called script, simply. And with the scripting language, you can define accounts with different rules, and these rules are enforced on-chain. So you can create a rule saying, I can spend this Bitcoin when I have like 3 signatures. And the blockchain itself, the miners, will verify that these 3 signatures happened. Sorry for the joke, it's just a French humor. MiniScript is the evolution of script. Script is great, but it could be a little bit cumbersome to understand and to verify. That's why MiniScript has been introduced a few years ago. And the idea of MiniScript is to provide a structured way to explain the governance. So on this MiniScript, Alice can spend her Bitcoin, or a 3 out of 3 among Bob, Carol, and Dave can spend the Bitcoin, or after 3 months, 2 out of 3 are necessary. And all of this is possible on Bitcoin. We are supporting at Ledger on our hardware wallet devices. We are supporting PSBT and MiniScript for more than a year now. And there are some companies, some projects, including Layana, maybe they are in the room, including Layana, who are building on top of this capability. You have also another possibility, which is used in the field, which is MPC. MPC stands for multi-party computation, and this is a wide field in cryptography that consists in jointly compute cryptographic operation. And in the case of multi-signature, the idea is to jointly compute multi-signature. It works well, it's quite elegant, but I have I see a few drawbacks with the current solutions that are implemented. The first one is the backup. With this MPC scheme, it's very difficult to have BIP39 and BIP32, so it's difficult to recover your wallet on different solutions. The second one is that today, secure hardware do not support MPC, and that means that the MPC player implements their cryptography on software, which is definitely not a good practice. Sometimes I hear some dismissive marketing saying that as it's MPC, there is no secret anymore. This is obviously not true. You still have secret key shards, and you need to secure them. And lastly, about MPC, the problem with MPC is it uses ECDSA. ECDSA is the former signature scheme that you have on Bitcoin, and this is definitely not good for multi-signature. The good news is on Bitcoin, Schnorr signature have been standardized around 2 years ago with Taproot, and Schnorr signature are really better than ECDSA for various reasons. It gives better security guarantee, and also it's additive. That means that you can implement MPC with Schnorr with good security guarantee. And it's been standardized in Bitcoin with there's 2 papers. The first one is MultiSig 2, which allows to do multi-signature, and the second one is Frost, allowing to do threshold signature. So multi-signature is n out of n, like 3 out of 3, and Frost, threshold signature, allows to do k out of n, so 3 out of 5, and this kind of thing. And what I can announce today, it's a small announcement. At Ledger, we are working on implementing Schnorr. We are already supporting Schnorr signature on our device, and we are working on supporting MultiSig 2 on our devices, allowing to do multi-signature on-chain for Bitcoin signature. This should come in the coming months. And lastly, it's not very well known, but Ledger is very well known for the retail and hardware wallet. But we have also built a set of solutions for enterprise, financial institution. And the big product is called Ledger Vault. And the idea of this product is really to provide a solution for financial institutions in order to secure and manage their assets with some governance. Again, we are leveraging secure hardware. This is how we consider security. So we are using HSM and personal security device. On this secure hardware, we have loaded the Ledger operating system with the security property, isolation, and the cryptographic implementation. And on top of this, we have implemented a governance framework. That means in the organization, users can create different roles, administrator and operators. And according to these roles, you can define a set of governance. For instance, you can say that this specific group of people have an access to this list of accounts, and they can make transaction to only this address, which is the whitelist. If they want to make a transaction above a certain threshold, then they will need to gather 3 approvals out of 5. Like all of this is possible with Ledger Vault, and it's very flexible. You can add and remove user and authorizer, which is often not really possible with the different solution. So it's very tailored for the governance over self-custody for institutions. So maybe this slide as a conclusion. So again, I think the big revolution that Bitcoin provides is permissionless money. It's really provided by the decentralized consensus and self-custody. Self-custody is a more complex problem when it comes to organization, group of people. And I think it's possible to do self-custody if you have a governance. Like for a company, owning Bitcoin means having some governance over the use of the Bitcoin. Then you have different possibilities, some which are completely on-chain, some which are completely off-chain, but you can also consider a mix of them. At Ledger, we are supporting PSBT and MiniScript on our devices. We are also working on having an implementation of Music 2, which will come very soon, and I'm pretty excited about that. And finally, when you set up this kind of solution, you need to think about the governance. Governance is really about who can access, who can spend. It's also about threshold. It's also about whitelist. All of this is important in the governance. Then you also have to think about security, where the key materials are stored, how they secured, how the cryptography is implemented. This is really something important. And finally, control, like who can access to the shards. Because if you have like a multi-sig setup and you depend on a third party that you don't particularly trust, it could be a big issue. And finally, I think backup and interoperability is really important. That was something I won't say enough. Like, I come from the security world, and what is really important when it comes to key is the backup. Backup is really important. So having backup, testing them is something that you really need to consider. And having interoperability is something important, so that if ever your provider disappears, you still can access to your wallet. So this is my conclusion. So I hope you will follow this advice, and they will help you to avoid ending up in jail. Thank you for your attention.
What a great talk. And we were just talking about pro-Bitcoin world leaders, because we've seen a lot of very important figures walking around the Bitcoin conference. And one of the things that's standing out in a lot of the countries is that Bitcoin is on the ballot. We've seen it in Argentina. We've seen it in the United States, of course, El Salvador. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's amazing. You know, one of the things that I've heard more than any other objection to Bitcoin is they'll probably just make it illegal. But the amount of entrenchments that we've made into the government is just amazing. As you said, in the United States, we have 3 or 4 presidential candidates that are talking about it, many high-ranking members of the government, and now we see it in like 3 or 4 countries at the same time. So it's rapidly growing.
Yeah, definitely. And we see in the legacy system, a lot of the old politicians, the Donald Trumps, the Joe Bidens, they're against Bitcoin, or they don't have a stance on it, where RFK,
they're too old.
Yeah, Vivek, RFK, Nayib Bukele, Javier Milei from Argentina. So it's definitely a good take that, it seems the new politicians are coming in and being pro-Bitcoin and pro-freedom.
And we're seeing it on both sides of the aisle. At one point, they're like, oh, it's right-wing, whatever. But now we're seeing both liberals and Democrats, or Democrats, liberals, and Republicans all coming together on it.
100%. This is the Bitcoin generation, and one of them is President of Madeira, Miguel Albuquerque, so watch him.
Thank you, Miami, for the last 3 years in this amazing city. The whole world shut down, but Miami welcomed us with open arms. We want to show Bitcoin to the whole world. We are taking the conference on the road to set the stage for Bitcoin in a new city. Nashville. Bitcoin 2024 is coming to Nashville in Tennessee, a city that is known as a music and freedom city. Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville from July 25th to 27th.